Hey, I'm Jim.
Hi, I'm Neil, and this is Youth on Subjects of the World. And today, you can see that we have one person that's not really a youth, if you will. This is Jim Flannery. He's a producer for Youth on Subjects of the World. And today, I guess we'll just, I don't know, be talking about whatever we want about. I guess we'll be talking about the show, kind of, and the history of it, and I guess where we want it to go and where it is now.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. This is somewhat spontaneous, so I will admit that I'm unprepared for this in a way. But on the other hand, I have actually been thinking a lot about this and what I wasn't here when the show first started. I joined up as a producer almost like a couple weeks after you guys interviewed me. So there's a part of me that I don't.
When was that? Do you remember when we interviewed you first for the show?
A year and a half ago, a year and ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
I'll tell you in a second. But yeah, so I guess in a way it was May of 2017, so a year and a half ago. And what I liked about what you guys were doing on the show is I liked the idea that you had a show which was giving a voice to young people. That you were running and you were choosing the topics, and it was your show to like put you guys on the stage to speak your minds. And in a way, me being a producer, I always feel a little bit almost out of place in it because it's like, well, I'm a co-producer. Like, what do you need me for? I mean, there's so often that I'm like, you guys don't need me. What am I even doing here? What's my role here? And so I've sort of thought about that as like, where do I fit into this damn thing? I'm happy to do it and to be a part of it, and it's been fun. And then also kind of like, what is it that I'm like, what am I interested in doing with the show, and how do I, not necessarily steer you guys, because on the one hand, it needs to be youth on subjects of the world. On the other hand, like, I guess I'm a producer, so I have to have some sort of input, but try to figure that out. It's a delicate game to make sure that I'm not turning into some coercive authoritarian that says we must make the show my vision,
Yeah, I mean, I think, I got into the show by I was there with for the first episode with, it was just Martin and Marley. Marley hasn't been on the show, I think, since the first episode, actually. Like, it was originally just going to be, I think it was just going to be us three, like either every week or every other week. And, or no, it was once a month. It was going to be originally once a month. We would do the show once a month for 2 hours, as we do now. And that was the show. But it very, very quickly stopped being that. And it became, like, I split up the first phase of Youth on Subjects of the World. It was just us three or sometimes it gives the other person and just like really, really staggered episodes, really far apart. And then I feel like the lighting's bothering me because it's just illuminating this one half of my face. Anyways, so we had, I think then it got really, really popular. I don't really look at the audience numbers or whatever with people coming on. Like, we had huge shows at one point. We had like a lot of people coming on.
I think there was a show where there was like 15 people on.
Yeah, it got to the point of it was very chaotic, and it went to and there was a lot of times when, like, if you weren't going to show up on the show, it would not matter because there'd be like 10 other people ready to jump in. So I think that it its pros and cons. The pros, obviously, a bunch of different points of view. You really don't have to worry about scheduling because literally anyone can just jump on. But the cons, I think, you really didn't see as much, I don't want to say personality, but depth of opinions. It was really just people, surface level opinions, because that's the only thing you can do in such a big show, covering like a big topic. So you don't really get into things as much, and I feel like it's a lot of waiting your turn to talk, and that can definitely be very irritating, especially if there's so many opinions on the floor. So I think that and then after, like, I guess we were going to do like the reboot of Youth on Subjects of the World, and like almost everybody who was doing the show then just kind of like dropped off. Like, I don't know what That's what I'm saying. They were just kind of, I guess, done with it. But I don't know. Every single one of them, except literally just Nathaniel, Martin, Dylan, and I, everybody just dropped off, which I think was very interesting because it all happened at once, which opened the door, though. It did open the door to have a new phase of the show where we would just talk about literally anything. And but I think that also became kind of, it got played out really fast because, first of all, we started circling back to the same things like over and over again because without a structured topic, we were just kind of going back to the same things over and over again. I liked it, but that did happen a lot. Then we kind of, I guess that would be the phase we're in now. We kind of try to have some vague topics. Like we've been doing interviews a little while ago. Try to have some vague topics to try to keep the show diverse. And every once in a while, we'll just have an episode where we just talk and say whatever. Because I think if you stagger those, they can be really, really good. They can be really, really good, especially if you stagger them and you have them far apart. It allows opinions to develop and people to reboot, and then it just is a really good. It ends up for having a really good show.
Yeah, I think so. As a listener, the ones that I like the most, I like the episodes that have a specific topic because I can choose. I say, well, I'm interested in this. And I can listen to that, and it's relevant because I chose it. And the ones where you have a guest on, I think are really great because you query this guest. I think the ones that are open-ended, I think what those are good for is figuring out what topics you're interested in talking about and kind of exploring. It almost makes me think like the way I do comedy, where I'll go to open mics and do all these different jokes and different stuff, kind of in different directions, different ideas. And then, maybe every 6 months I'll go back and I'll listen to those recordings. And a lot of it is to figure out like anything that worked. Did I say anything that people actually laughed at? But there's the piece of it where I listened, I was like, oh, wow, like I noticed that I'm talking about this topic a lot. I didn't realize that I cared so much or gave a shit about this topic. And it's kind of reflective to say, oh, I should dive deeper into that. So I don't think that the ones that we have on the show where it's an open topic, I don't think a lot of other people, I could be wrong, I don't think a lot of other people are going to tune into that because if they go to an episode list, if you have a list of, I don't know, we're at like 50 episodes, and you're scrolling through that list, what's going to catch your attention is a specific topic.
Like, it's not going to be like a date like September, whatever. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it would draw someone's attention, but I think us as a team of figuring out, all right, what are the next topics we want to go into? Who do we want to have on as a guest? I think those are pretty good and useful episodes for that. I mean, even this week, I get out of the shower and I come on and, we were short a cast member. So like, okay, now we're jumping into a conversation. I don't think that and I'm not trying to discredit myself. I don't think this is going to be the most captivating discussion for a listener, but maybe something will come in here that will help us figure out, oh, where do we want to go next with the show? What are what's the topic we want to get into next? What do we want to do, from that perspective? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask, from like a motivation, like why do you want to do the show? I guess I'm like interviewing, what do you want to do with this show? What motivates you to do this every week, every other week, continuously for like the last couple of years? Like what's behind this for you?
Well, I think I summarized it pretty well in the first episode, actually, Youth on Subjects of the World, where it's just, I feel like exchanging knowledge is just a very powerful thing. Everything else held constant, just exchanging knowledge with any number of people or exchanging opinions, I think can be very valuable. And I think that we're doing, in a sense, like, I guess, I don't want to say our part, but we're trying to do our part here by trying to not just say our opinions, but, spark conversation, debate, and opinions in that. And that goes to people listening too, of course, like anyone who disagrees with us. It gives people a chance to go to the other side and look at the other arguments and see what they are, or to stay on the side and look at what the arguments are, what the more powerful arguments are, and really get an in-depth look at that. And I think that, and that's just for like debates with like two sides. When we're talking about like existential things, I think that's just like, it's really just mental stimulation. That's all it really is. And I don't think it's necessarily how it's but I don't think it's always a bad thing. It can, if you're just like over and over again going to the same like like not being quote productive. Not everything we have to do has to be productive, because if you say that, we can go down a whole rabbit hole of things that we do. But I think it can be productive to an extent, and that's one of the reasons I just like personally doing the ones with just no topics. Sometimes, not all the time.
Let me maybe I should have been more specific about my question, right? So
Mm-hmm.
having these conversations is sharing information, and it's fun. What is it that motivates you to have these conversations and then have it broadcast out to the entire world to watch the conversation taking place?
Well, I guess if I just want to like really simplify it, it's because I want to make, I guess, it's not like I'm making like a big difference, but I want to try, like, even if like you eat a sandwich, I feel like you're making like a minor difference. I think that this is a way I can make at least a difference somehow. I don't know exactly how, but I feel like that's something I can do rather easily, because I've always been just liked talking and, speaking and debating and things like that. So I think that this is an outlet that I can use to at least not even necessarily help people or be good or anything. I don't really care. It's more about the fact that just being able to try to change the world, and even like a hyper minuscule way, just being able to have an effect. I think that that's something interesting that I like to do. And regardless of anything, that's one of the reasons I like doing this. I think it's an easy way for me to do that. And I like talking and having conversations with people.
So when you say talk about changing the world, whose world do you think you could change by doing this show?
Well, I'm not necessarily changing the world. More, I feel like when I say change the world, I just mean affect it. Like, I feel like...
Who's your intended audience? Who are you picturing having an effect on?
I feel like I might be coming up the wrong way, because I don't feel like I'm affecting anyone to any major extent. I feel like, look, if someone posts a mean comment and says, "Oh, you're a piece of crap," I feel like that's an effect. Like, that's it. I'm talking about a really, really, really small effect, like a really, really, really small one. But I think that any effect, at least hopefully a positive one, can help. And I think that I'm doing at least a small part of my part to either try to make the world a better place, or just to contribute to it. And yeah, it's a really, really, really small part, like almost probably not even measurable, but it's something that I can do easily. So I do it. And because it's fun. It's not like I'm trying to do the show every day, like, how am I going to change the world even in a minuscule way today? It's just, oh no, it's fun a lot of the times.
Right. So is part of this for you, the idea, I mean, the show's called Youth on Subjects of the World, right? Mm-hmm. Is part of this idea of making an impact from your perspective, and I'm like putting words in your mouth. So like, this is like a loaded question in some ways. So like, I mean, you can call me out on that. Is in some way this about youth rights to you, or speaking up for young people, or giving young people a voice? Like, do you look at it as some sort of a social activism thing where you say, hey, this is doing something good for young people? Or is it more, hey, I like doing this and I happen to be young, and so we'll call it Youth on Subjects of the, right? Do you see what I'm getting at? Like,
that's what it is. Yeah, it is the second one, because I really don't care about age. I really don't care. If we do talk about youth subjects, no pun intended, youth subjects a lot on the show. But I think when we do talk about that, then I would try to inject that first purpose you were talking about, where, talking about youth, then we talk about that. However, for any other topic like this topic, the second one, it's just we happen to be youth, and I think we can offer not necessarily a new perspective, but it offers it's definitely new. Because you see a lot of podcasts, a lot of them. We don't see a lot of podcasts with kids. So I think that's our thing, if you will. And that's why it's called Youth on Subjects of the World. In my opinion. I'm sure other people hold the other opinions.
It might be your niche or the aspect that makes it novel and interesting, but that's not necessarily your motivation.
That's not my motivation, probably, at all. Unless it's an episode where it's specifically being talked about. Like, if this were, like, I'd be equally comfortable doing a podcast just about youth rights or whatever, or anything you want to talk about. But this, however, It's not that, in my opinion. This is just, we just happen to be youth talking about subjects of the world. Hey, why don't we put them together, youth on subjects of the world?
I got you. And it just, the fact that we've had a few guests on that were about education and such is not because the goal is to have the show be a show about unschooling.
I think it just happens to be that all of our opinions and all of our, first of all, we were all connected normally through like the same like LWI conference, I think, Life Without Instructions. I think we were all like connected in some way to that conference. Everyone, well, not maybe everyone who came on, but the people that started it, yeah. I met Ann at LWI. I met Martin at LWI. I don't know when Martin met Ann.
You met me. I met you.
I met you at LWI.
All of you at LWI.
Yeah, I met you at LWI. Mm. And if you look at all the connections, it all like stems from like LWI, which is like
fascinating is it's not childhood without instructions. It's life.
Yeah.
It really appeals. I mean, it appeals to anybody. I mean, even like my own life and existence.
Yeah, just life without instructions, not necessarily. Yeah, it was a conference for those of you who are wondering, and I don't think. Yeah, but it was. I think it all stems from there, and because we happened to go to that conference, we happened to share these ideals. Not to mention the network that this is on, the Conscious Consumer Network. I mean, this is clearly it has the network itself has like a niche of like rethinking education, right? Or like challenging the general notion of education. Not necessarily a niche, but just that happens to be something that most audience members and most people on the podcast here and on the discussions here happen to hold. Like one of the biggest shows.
Love for the Love of Learning.
For the Love of Learning, that one. That's like, is that the biggest show on Conscious Consumer Network? It might be, I don't know. But it's definitely, I mean, that's like a landmark show. That's the one that kind of, I feel like, is like the Conscious Consumer Network show. If I thought Conscious Consumer Network, if I think about that, if I wasn't a youth on subjects of the world, I would think, oh, Lainey Show for the Love of Learning, which is, of course, about education. So I feel like it's for those reasons we happen to talk about those topics a lot, and I think we'll continue to talk about those topics a lot because of that.
Yeah, I suppose in my angle of it is some sort of a youth rights. I mean, even it's funny. So when we decided to start doing guests, and I was like saying to you guys, all right, what kind of guests should we bring on? Who do you guys want to get? When I guess I wanted you guys in a way to choose all the guests, and then either for you to go and find them or have me reach out. And, I just want to like be helpful in whatever way without being overbearing. But then I ended up sort of choosing who our guests are. Who do we have on? I think one of our first guests was Emily Cutler. It's like, what is it? Like I reach into like, okay, well, who are the people that I've networked with and connected with that I think are trying to reach out? So what did I bring? A mental health activist on because I care about that stuff. And like, I think a big part of my interest in youth rights and in altering the education model and the school systems is that I think I look at the impact it has on mental health and stuff. So we bring her on, and then who we have? We had like Peter Gray. We had on Gina Riley. We had on Nicole Cutler. Like these are all people that I've like connected with through the alternative education world. And to me, I think there's this like youth rights activism or unschooling, self-directed learning. I mean, there's that angle of it that I guess I bring into the show. And I think even like with PUN, with the Peer Unschooling Network, something that's frustrated me with that is trying to figure out, well, what the hell is this thing supposed to be? I think that I want it to be more of like an activism thing. What am I trying to work towards? What am I trying to do? And I guess I'm like trying to change culture or create opportunities and get rid of some of this like authoritarian oppression, kind of shit that's out there in the world towards young people. And so I guess I come at it with that motivation, and that probably skews, that's not the same motivation that you have. Right. I mean, not to say that you don't give a shit about that, but
yeah, it's just that's not that's not the angle that I necessarily approach the show. And I think I think my angle is the same angle that Dylan has. I think I could be wrong, but I'm like pretty sure that that's how he feels too, because we both just like talking on. I don't know. I feel like Martin might share more your opinion.
I think when I've talked to Martin, I think he and I don't like the idea of speaking on his behalf. Right. I could be wrong about this. I've gotten the impression he likes the idea of having a show that shows young people speaking their opinion with a conservative, from a conservative perspective.
Yeah, he
Because whenever you
definitely
hear
gives
from
that
young
opinion.
people, you tend, first off, you rarely hear from young people. Second off, when you do, you usually hear like a leftist perspective.
Right, and a lot of the times, like, I think Martin, yeah, I think that kind of surprised me when I heard that. I know Dylan and I were we weren't taken aback. We were kind of like, well, yeah, because I don't think Dylan and I necessarily hold more conservative views. I think Martin does just by default because he's libertarian or more libertarian. So by default, he holds more conservative views. I think it just happens to be that Dylan and I happen to like deviate from like the left, even to click nowadays, especially with like youth shows. It tends to be any deviation from the left is seen as not necessarily people are painting it as right, but it's just I feel like I'm moderate. I don't know if I'll call myself left leaning or right leaning. I feel like socially, um, I would be left leaning. I feel like when it comes to the economy, I'd be more right leaning, not with necessarily trickle down economic, but more with libertarianism. I have like a complex view on politics and stuff. I would never call myself a right leaning person. I don't think. So I think that's Martin's vision of it. That kind of surprised me actually. That's probably just because everyone has their own take on the show, right? I think that's something that's interesting about it. It's like we can all come on, say our opinions, and then all come up with a different takeaway with what we think the show is, because we're all able to equally express our opinions. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. I think it's a good thing that he holds a different view from the show than all of us, really. But yeah, I just think we're a bunch of kids just talking about stuff. I just think that's how I've always thought about it. We're talking about stuff that we think is interesting.
Yeah, I suppose I think for this show, that should be the goal of it. Now I think that if I'm looking to do things with activism, there's other kind of worlds to play that in. And if this show had an activist slant to it, it might in some way lose some of its not credibility, but then it becomes a certain soapbox.
Yeah,
if you're trying to persuade people, as opposed, like, it's one thing if you are just having a conversation amongst each other discussing these ideas versus if you are thinking, ooh, how can we persuade people and change, and I probably ended up
yeah, I definitely, that's something that I was about to talk about. Like, I feel like if we kind of go for an activism approach, I feel like a lot of times activism, it feels like you're being talked at instead of talked with. And it's just like, oh, did you know this? Are you that? I mean, it comes, okay, I'm not saying no one says this, but it always comes off as, oh, you don't know this? Are you that fucking stupid? Like, come on, really? You don't know this? All right, really? Well, look at this. Look at this. If you don't think that this is true after I just told you with not hearing from the other side, then you're an idiot. I feel like that it comes, like, activism sometimes comes off like that. And I think that instead of activism, I feel like education, because, okay, there's a good quote that I remember. So I like this. So, I mean, I don't think anyone I never talk about nutrition or veganism on the show, but I'm a vegan who's really interested in nutrition. I never talk about that on the show. It's probably just because the only people interested in nutrition on the show or like veganism are just Dylan and I, and no one else is interested in that. So there's a really good quote from this one guy that I really like listening to about it, was that because he got accused like, oh, you're a jerk when you talk about veganism. And he said, well, look, it doesn't matter how I act and how I talk, because if I give you the proper information, and when I give you the proper information, good, reasonable or reasonable people are going to do the right thing, regardless of how it was told to them. If someone only cares about how it was said to them, and if they were polite when they were being told, then they're not good, reasonable people, and they probably don't even care about that issue anyways. So I think that was a very interesting quote that I really like, that good, reasonable people are going to do the right thing no matter how you present it to them. So that's why when people are like, oh, well, you could just, like, I feel like a lot of times people are talking about like, oh, you could, like effective activism. I really don't like, because like effective activism is basically just how effective can you make your activism. I think that when people talk about that, especially from an outside perspective, it really like irks me, because it's like, well, you don't even care, and it's and I feel like activism itself can be really pretentious because like I try to avoid the term activism. I try to go for the term education because I think that works.
Well, education is a form of
Yeah, I just try to avoid the blanket term of activism. Like I know technically
yeah.
what we do a lot of times is activism, like falls under the dictionary definition. But like when it comes when you generally say activism, they're just like I feel like people they're gonna get talked at and talked down to. But it's really just a conversation about educating
Sure.
people and trying to explain your viewpoint and see how it works with their viewpoint or whatever. And I think that I think that's I feel like that's more effective than effective activism.
Yeah, I think so. It makes me think a little bit of when you and Dylan did your talk at Aero this year.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I was at the Aero X conference. Let's say that Aero X was in March and then major Aero conference was in like May or June, something like that. So at Aero X, there was 2 events where they had panels. They had panel discussions where they had one day they had a panel with all of these teens from Liberated Learners Centers. So they might have 8 kids that went to either the North Star Center in Sunderland, Massachusetts, or Lighthouse in Holyoke, Massachusetts, or I think there's one up in like Hudson Valley area. So they brought these people on a panel, and then I think it might have been Ken Danford or Joel Hammond, who was the moderator of the panel. And then the next day there's a place called Workspace in Bethel, Connecticut. And they had about 6, 7, maybe 8 kids from Workspace up there, and they had the head of Workspace moderate that. And the idea was that people in the audience could ask questions, and then you'd get to hear from the youth their story, their experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking to myself, well, why the hell are the moderators there? Like, way to like take away, like, what's your purpose up there? What is your role here? And don't get me wrong, not to take anything away from Ken or Joel or any of these people, like they've created, like what they've created is amazing. There was a certain sense where I felt like, why do you need
still
them?
Separation.
Yeah, like why do you need them to moderate? Whereas when you guys did your talk, I mean, sure, what's his name? Jerry. Yeah, I'm sure Jerry emailed you guys asking you like something. I don't know what. And I think I emailed him to introduce you guys to that. Yeah. I don't know that he had any idea what topic you were going to do, or maybe there was, but.
Well, we had to email him. I know he asked, and
right.
We had to and Dylan and I were just talking on the phone, and we just wanted to do trust because I feel like that's a blanket issue.
I mean, he didn't choose that for you. He didn't review your. And then in that room, when you were speaking, it was you 2 up in the front of the room, and there was no moderator. It was just you. You guys ran the show, and then there was a room full of parents and educators who had. And I thought that was like super badass. And the difference between those 2 things was, I mean, you guys were in charge. It was your show, and it to me that was really a big example of like, it's you don't look at it like you're doing activism work, but I look at it like there is something there of like changing public perception through having you guys running that workshop and doing that. And I think it was, I don't know, to me that was a big deal. And even so, I say that with Youth on Subjects of the World. I'm like, all right, what is my purpose here? What is my role here? Without it being that am I playing that role of moderator that sort of is getting in the way of the show? I don't know. Not to say.
I feel like it's kind of, cause I know a lot of times, like I know you talk about how not necessarily you say like, oh, I should stay out of the way. You kind of like, you don't say that, but you're kind of like, I feel like I really don't care because instead of like this whole, I feel like you're going at an angle of let the children decide. And I feel like I'm going at the angle of I don't give a shit because I don't give a shit who decides as long as it's good. Because it's like, I feel like there's because I feel like there's not necessarily a middle ground, but I feel like there's something where instead of just trying to figure out, like, I guess who, like, let's get the children up there and talking and doing this, or the kids up there, or let's get them to or just let them do it themselves. I mean, I understand that, but it's like, I really don't care. who it is. And I kind of resented the fact that, I didn't resent it, but I mean, I understood why, but I feel like a lot of people were there just because we were kids giving the talk. And I understand that that's a different angle. But I mean, I don't know. I still feel like, oh, well, oh, wow, this is the only black guy at Arrow. Should we all listen to his talk? It's like, it's like, oh, I don't really care.
Well, let me point that out too. All right. So there is a yes and there's a no to that. All right. So there's a few different things. One, if everyone went to your talk because yours was the only one that was done by young people.
Yeah.
Doesn't that tell you there's a need or an interest in it? No one's going there out of pity for you as the young people. It ain't like, oh, we want to make sure that there's an audience for them so that they feel good and it ain't that. They're going because
I recognize that
information. They want to know that stuff. If it was a different demographic, like you said, oh, there's one talk being given by a black, well, that didn't necessarily, I mean, I don't know who was listening, but as far as I know, that didn't apply. But the fact that people said, hey, there's one being done by the people that go to a Sudbury, we want to hear from them. There's a want for that. And maybe it's based on an identity politic thing, but it's based on your experience and what you have going on.
I generally tend to absolutely, I guess this plays to the right wing part of the podcast, I guess. I generally tend to despise identity politics because I really don't. I hate this. I have a lisp right now because I have a retainer in because I just got my braces off, and it's absolutely infuriating because when I'm talking, I have this lisp, and I can't say S is, so it's absolutely infuriating. Anyways, but it'll be done in 2 weeks. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess I can see that because it's like it's a different because we're talking like directly on like subjects that not necessarily affect youth, but even if we weren't youth, like we went to a Sudbury school and Dylan not that long ago was in public school. So I guess we can offer that perspective. Yeah, perhaps the same thing would have been a similar outcome if we had like 2 Sudbury staff members there, or not even that. I'm not saying because I think it's a Sudbury perspective, not just from the staff, but from the kids, because kids that go to Sudbury and staff that go to Sudbury are 2 very different dynamics. So I guess I can see that. It's like, but I still feel like it shouldn't be based on the identity. It should be based on experiences and knowledge on the topic or what they can offer to the topic. And yeah, in some cases, kids can offer more knowledge to a topic than adults on certain things. Like, for example, like in personal experiences in education. Normally, kids can offer more perspective to that because they literally experience it every day. However, I also feel that sometimes, not all the time, I'm just saying sometimes it gets to the point where, oh, wow, we should go listen to these kids. Why? Because they're kids and they can offer a different perspective on the topic. Yeah, but like, are these kids, are they actually like, and yeah, but because it's the point where it's like, this specific topic, are they offering anything other than, oh, wow, their kids will have a different perspective? It's like, well, I don't care. Just if I'm a kid, I care if I'm offering a different perspective on the topic. Sure, yeah, we were offering a different perspective on Arrow because we actually went to a Sudbury school. And we actually had to deal with like people every day about the Sudbury school. And I think that we were relatively well-spoken. So yeah, we offered something. I just don't like the idea of people coming there for anything other than that. I'm not trying to say come there for those reasons and not any other reason. I'm just saying like that's how I feel. I'm not saying it's a pity party or anything. I'm just saying I don't like people wanting to go just for the sake of it's kids. Why else? It's kids like that.
I think you might be either selling yourself short or being a little hard on yourself. It instead of looking at it as an identity politic-y kind of thing or from that, when I look at it, here's a free market thing. Like it's your brand, it's your product. They're there because they want to serve their needs. They want to know they're looking to see, what is the product or what is the result of the product that comes out of a Sudbury school? Like they're looking at it and they're judging how good the Sudbury model works based on how well spoken you are or how good you are. So they're looking at it from that perspective. Your topic was on trust, which is you could tell in that room that was a big issue that people cared about. Now, even if it was an adult talking about the topic of trust, they might have still gone to the talk. But it gave it an interesting perspective that it was from young people. So I don't think you should, like, limit yourself or the impact that you made or the attendance. I mean, if the room was packed, and it might have been for all of these different factors, but no one was there out of pity for you. Maybe your mom, but no one else was there out of pity. No, you know what I'm saying? Like, there was nobody who went there for that reason. And I think that there's a certain sense of, like, people vote with their feet. Like, there are plenty of topics you could have chosen that nobody would have gone to listen to.
Yeah. I guess you're right. We could have chosen something really stupid, and they probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, there's other stuff. People are busy, dude. There's other things they could do with their time.
Yeah, I mean, there were some pretty interesting things going on that time too. I guess I also kind of felt a little, not really bad, but yeah, a little bad, because I feel like even if a few people came just because we're kids, and again, this is just me thinking, I feel like it's like we took away from other, like, people. It's like I feel like, and this isn't, I'm trying to branch into something. I'm not trying to, like, let's just talk about this. I'm saying, like, I feel like this happens with identity politics, which I don't really like, in that, again, people just show up for the identity, not the opinion. And I think that's, I'm not trying to actually, like, say that that's what people do all the time. That's what most people do. That's what people give our talk. I'm not trying to say any of that. I'm just saying I feel like it happens, and I feel like it promotes something. I feel like it promotes something that really, it's kind of detrimental. You show up for the identity, not for the actual topic. And I feel like that's becoming more prominent in our society. I don't really like that much.
I'd have to agree with you there. I guess I'm using this specific case of the presentation that you guys gave and saying that I don't think was an issue. And also, like, again, I think if you want it, like, from a free market, call it perspective, I think the fact that you see this identity politics thing happening, one is maybe it's going on because it's effective and people are playing up the fact that it's effective. I think the other side of it is that there's something going on, like, there's a need. People feel like they're not being listened to. They feel like their perspective doesn't exist. They feel helpless or powerless. They feel like they don't have a voice, and they're trying to figure out, how can I have one? How can this, like, make an impact on me? How can I connect? And they're seeing that is sort of playing that role, and I guess time will tell whether it continues to be effective or if it falls apart. It's, if it's imposed on you, then it's kind of a political thing. But if people are voluntarily choosing that out of interest, like, I'll give you an example. So when I, this summer, when I did my comedy tour, what I found became more effective towards the end of the summer was, here I did these shows for teens. So there's a question of, like, okay, teens find things funny, but it's not like...
Wonderful observation, Jim. Wonderful observation.
Well, so what I'm getting at is, like, you went to the show. As you could tell, the show that I did was the same material that I performed for adults. I was just...
Right.
I didn't change it because, there's a youthful audience. But when I was marketing or promoting the show, I tried to make it more relevant to young people. And like, oh, well, why would we want to go to this? And so I would make sure in the ads to mention, like, oh, there's a lot of jokes and material about mental health.
I feel like that's less identity. I feel like that's more catering to demographics.
Yes and no, but demographics and identity sort of go a little bit hand in hand. I mean, if I would talk about mental health and education in the school system. First off, the school system, everyone goes through it. Well, almost everyone goes through it. But it really hits home to people that are in the system currently. Mm-hmm. And I suppose maybe parents of kids that are currently in the system, fine. And the mental health thing might reach more demographics than others. But like, playing that, and by the way, like the like psychiatric survivor and the mental health, like, that is, from your perspective, because you haven't been in it, that's like an identity politic in itself. Like, there's a lot of people that consider themselves, like, because that has had such a impact on their life, they kind of feel that is, like, part of their identity in some way. It might not affect you, so you don't view it from that point of view, but it can be like an identity thing. I mean, there's someone I know, if there was a politician that ran and said, like, hey, like, I was through the mental health system and I'm going to do X, Y, Z, there's a lot of people who would be like, oh, like, it can become an identity. Anything can sort of become, like, part of your identity in that way. But
yeah, I mean, I feel like but the example you gave about the politician, I feel like that's more about experiences that people went through, and someone went through an experience, and they were going to cater to people that also went through that experience, because they can now experience empathy towards that experience, and they now know what happened to that system, so they can fix it and make it better. Now, let me give an example, and I think that's a good example of something good identity politics can do, having a good perspective on something. However, okay, I hate to bring up like actual real politics, but I'm not trying to slander any presidential candidate or whatever, or not even slander, because it's not slander really. I'm not trying to like diss any presidential candidate, because I equally despise both of them. Don't worry, I'm equal there. I really didn't like either of them, to be honest, but this is just something I think like Hillary Clinton did that I didn't necessarily like, because I feel like it was kind of a dishonest campaign, because she said, because Trump was playing on the card that he's an outsider, which I think is, first of all, the most stupid card to play. When you hire for a job, do you look for the people with the least amount of qualifications for that job? Like, oh, I'm going to hire this guy. No, you don't, you freaking idiot. But anyways, so it's a dumb card to play. And it's even dumber that people actually went on that card like, oh, wow, this is great. I'm going to vote for him. That's so stupid. But then Hillary turns around and it's the stupidest possible thing. I did not know that something could be done stupider than what Trump did on that, but she managed to do it by saying, oh, you're saying you're an outsider. Who could be more of an outsider than a woman? Are you really? Are you shitting me? Like, she was freaking in the White House when Bill Clinton was signing bills. She directly influenced Bill Clinton. Multiple bills and vetoes would not have been signed without her directly telling Bill to do. She was Secretary of State, a senator. How much more of an insider could you be? Oh no, because I'm a woman. Why does that matter? Like, that has nothing to do with anything.
So I'm just to like play devil's advocate, because it makes for a better discussion.
Yeah.
So when I said something about like being through the psychiatric system and that experience that I had, or that if we're talking about this theoretical politician, right? That, oh, that person's been through this system, so maybe they have some insights into what it's like to go through that, and they might be able to give a different perspective or make some differences or changes. I mean, who's to say that growing up and existing as a woman in our society doesn't give you an interesting or a novel or a new perspective on things? Who's to say that growing up being, a black person doesn't give you some sort of interesting or novel perspective and thing that gives you insights which allows you to change things? I mean, I will say this specifically for the psychiatric one. I cannot say what it's like to be a black person or a woman or a gay person, right? But I through growing up quite privileged and then going through the psychiatric system and then seeing what those experiences and stigma, discrimination, and oppression towards that group, that then gave me some sort of way to understand, not to say that I fully understand it, but now I can sort of understand a little bit of some of the issues that say women, gay people, and black people go through, because now I have a taste of what discrimination, stigma, oppression, not having a voice, having your opinions discounted, and that type of shit is about, which I otherwise would not have understood. And so I think that now to say that is a reason why somebody should be a president, is a wholly different, I think that's a totally different story. To say that those experiences are worthless, I think, is to really discount it. To say that those experiences are the foundation for why you should be the leader of the free world is to like exaggerate its value. But I feel like there is some value that someone gets from having these different perspectives.
Well, I think that I'm okay with saying that, I have a different perspective on this. And it happens to be that because I'm a woman, because I think that just saying that and just saying I have a different perspective on this because I'm a woman, full stop, they're two very different things. Like I think she did, Hillary Clinton, like say certain things, but on like why she thought she could offer a different perspective. I think some of them were well-founded, but most of the time I feel like it was just, it was literally just, I'm a woman, therefore I can offer perspectives. Okay, sure. Which ones? And I mean, she literally sold. And okay, to be clear, we're not necessarily just talking about like Hillary Clinton here. This is supposed to be kind of like an example or anecdote trying to be applied to everything. But anyway, so I feel like it's like she literally sold like a woman card on her website, like a woman card. It's like, like literally, because she was trying to like play off the fact that like, oh, you pulled the woman card. It's like, that's not a good thing. That's weaseling your way out of like different conversations. I feel if you want to say that I have a different experience because I'm a woman, here's why. Okay, awesome. I have a different experience because I'm a woman. Okay,
well, look at it this way. I guess if you were to believe, like, let's say that you were going to run for office because you believed that you could make a difference and that you could change the world and that you could make an impact. In order to do that, you've got to get into office.
Right.
So why not use the best mechanisms that you have to get yourself elected without lying or cheating? If you believe that playing up the fact that you're a woman is going to help you get into office, why not do that? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, but I'm saying it's a tactic that probably should have worked. I mean, it's really amazing that it didn't work. But why not play up that fact? If it
I feel like because it kind of, I feel like it lowers the quality to argue dishonestly. And I feel like it's not. I not dishonest would argue she's not lying about she's a woman. I think it's just the fact that I feel like it lowers the quality of civil discourse, like overall, especially when a presidential candidate does that. Instead of saying, I had different experiences because I'm a woman, these are the reasons, these are facts, you can check them, or even anecdotes would have been nice. Even like anecdotes, like sure, she probably gave anecdotes during the presidential campaign, but specific anecdotes, when she said that would have been fine. You could argue, oh, they're anecdotal, sure, but at least she's providing something. But just to argue, and I think just saying, oh, I'm a woman, they probably have different experiences, I think that is a dishonest way to talk about it because you're not even actually talking about the experiences. You're just saying, I'm a woman, I have a perspective. So I feel like it lowers the overall quality of civil discourse. So I think we need to, as a society, everyone should just try to want to be as honest as possible. It sounds like a really stupid blanket statement to say. It's the same. I guess it's the same reason I don't like when people say, "I'm against sexism. I'm against racism." Are you also against murdering people? Like, oh wow, like especially when people say, "Oh, I'm against rape." Are you also against running over people with cars? I feel like people make blanket statements and then feel like, and I've done my part now. I've made a blanket statement. I feel better. I don't know. It's just something that's always kind of got me wrong. It's like, I'm against this. What else are you against running over people with cars too? I'm against jumping off a cliff. It's like, okay.
Well, yeah. All right. So, and I agree. One of my biggest issues with like politics and why I try to not pay attention to it is that everything always seems to be about the people and not the issues and the subjects and the ideas.
Yes.
It's always about like the people, because that's what you vote for. You vote for people. Really, this is supposed to be about ideas and issues and laws and rules and that type of thing, but it kind of gets dismissed. And then when you do make it about, like when it does come up where we say, all right, let's talk about the issues. Let's talk. What ends up happening, as far as I can tell, is they just bring up the most polarizing ones. They'll bring up, let's talk about immigration or abortion or gun control. And we'll just like, what are the most dividing things? So you either have discussions, which is about the people, and character assassination type things,
yeah.
And which I'm like, all right, that's great. Everyone's done some shitty things. I've done some shitty things. Like I'm no moral perfection example. Like I've done things that I regret is not the right word, but things that I feel bad about, or that I it would have been nicer if I hadn't done or said, right? But then if you get into issues, which is really what it should be about, we just come up with the things that divide people and make them argue, which really never anything changes. Like, it doesn't seem like there's really a recipe for success or progress. So maybe progress is supposed to be slow. Maybe it's like designed purposely to be slow.
Yeah, I definitely, I agree with you on that. I mean, it tends to be less. I think it's because I feel like it doesn't challenge people or challenge candidates or people to just talk about like images, just attack images and character assassinations rather than attacking arguments, because of the fact that when you start talking about the issues, it tends to not necessarily just divide people, but to put them all into, because everyone has very complex opinions on issues, especially if you talk about them more, because that raises public awareness. People have even more complex opinions. So when people start to have complex opinions, that's when they start to identify less with specific people because they have their own views. And they tend to more lean to the middle or to somewhere else or have some different opinion. However, when you attack images and really polarizing subjects, you're probably never going to get like someone who, well, you're less likely to have people who are have very complex opinions on topics. It's just like this person's bad because they did this. This person's bad because they said this, instead of just like you were just saying, instead of just attacking, instead of just talking about like the opinions and the arguments, because that really, really, really tends to have people develop complex opinions, which has them drift less away from a certain person and more into their own complex beliefs on it. But I want to circle back to the show because I want to ask a question, and that's
Sure,
that.
Go for it.
All right, so I want, where do all the things for the show get posted? Because I've always wondered this, because I don't know, because I know that they're posted on YouTube. I know that they're posted on the website like via YouTube, and I don't know anything else. But I know like people like I don't know. And where's the live stream? I know it's live streamed on YouTube. Is that the only place it's live streamed?
Okay, so the live stream goes on. Conscious Consumer Network has a feed. There's a YouTube feed and a separate feed. So let me first say that this is probably not organized, and it's a little bit confusing. But yeah, so consciousconsumernetwork.tv/CCN-live. It's like sent out to a bunch of different feeds at once. YouTube is one of them. And then we have there's a YouTube channel for Conscious Consumer Network, which has all their programming, and we're mixed in there. And then just recently, Ann and I made a Youth on Subjects of the World YouTube channel. And so we're going to try, whenever the videos are published to CCN, we're going to put them on there. And then in order to get the show onto iTunes and Android, so we're on the iTunes podcast list, and we're also inside the Android Play Store. In order to get it onto those two platforms, I put the content on SoundCloud, and SoundCloud automatically sends it out to those two different places. And then on top of that, I finally started putting time into it last week, and it's in process of making there's like multiple, there was like a Weebly website that still exists from like a year and a half ago that's out there. And I'm working on making an actual youthonsubjectsoftheworld.com site.
Yeah, I just saw that. I went to youthonsubjectsoftheworld.com just a little while ago, and I saw it was just like 4 episodes, like the 4.
Well, what's up there right now, if you look at those 4 episodes, they're all the same video. Basically,
Biggie just sent a message. Biggie just sent a message saying basically what you said: Conscious Consumer Network TV.live or Conscious Consumer Network.tv/CCN-live is the place for the stream. We stream to 5 or 6 different platforms.
Yeah, and so the website will have. I'm in the process of building it, and it's sort of, unfortunately, the work in progress is public right now. I should hide it so you can't see that it looks like that right now. But anyways, what it will have is when it's ready to go, it'll have links to the iTunes and Android podcasts, and then it will have all the videos. And I think that's like the best thing to do is I think most people listen to podcasts through their smartphones. So I think the Android iTunes thing will get the biggest audiences. If people want to, I don't imagine a lot of people are going to sit and watch the video of our show on YouTube, right. But I can imagine that they'll hit play and they'll listen to it in the background. So that's what I'm, trying to do with that.
So, okay. So how does how many, I know how people I don't know how many people watch the show live or whatever, because I know that YouTube, tends to get so I'm just wondering how many people normally watch like a show. I think Martin cares about this a little more. I don't really care because even if no one was watching it, I feel like this is kind of a like I was talking about, a method of knowledge transfer and like awareness increasing, a method for that, basically, regardless of if anyone else is participating in it. But so, like, do you know like how many people, like, because not just because I know on YouTube there's a view counter, and on the website CCN there's a view counter. But like, do you know, like, for like, I don't know if it's already on iTunes or whatever, or on like SoundCloud or other places, like other places it's streamed, like how many people normally watch it?
That's a good question. I can give you some examples from stats. So like an example. So a month ago on SoundCloud, I posted the Youth on Trade and Commerce episode number 31. We're up to like episode 50 now. So that episode seems to have gotten a lot of attention. That one has had like 100 plays in the last month. I don't know if that's a ton or not. The other ones seem to hover around like 20 plays. The last week, there's 8, and that's SoundCloud. I don't really think too many people are looking things up on SoundCloud. I mainly put it on SoundCloud as a way to push it out to the iTunes and the Android thing.
Is there like an actual?
Let me see if there's. There probably is a way to look at these stats. I just have never really looked at them. Which is not saying that it's a good thing. Let me look up to see what I am actually.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because like I don't mean to sound like who cares, like a pretentious kind of, but I mean I don't think we would necessarily need to care. I think Martin actually, I remember Martin actually commented on like the view count, how he'd like to see it higher one time.
Here's something that I can tell you that's interesting. Is so like on iTunes right now, don't get me wrong, I think 30 of the episodes are on iTunes.
How many episodes are we at now?
Around 50.
Okay, so we're not that far behind.
Yeah, so the number one episode in terms of how many people have watched it is the show on education. Then the next highest, that's episode 6.
Episode 6. Oh, wow.
And then the next one is youth on adultism. And then there's youth on internet culture, and then youth on mental health.
Like that one. I like the youth on internet culture. That was fun. I feel like it gave us a chance just to screw around. So I feel like a lot of times we kind of have to, not necessarily like, oh wow, that has a lot of on the Conscious Consumer Network page, it has like 610 views.
Oh damn, that's cool.
On YouTube, it has 68. And those are the ones that I look at.
So and my like approach to this has been to get caught up on posting the stuff in these different channels. So, for example, once I get caught up on having everything to date on iTunes,
and I'm assuming you're staggering it because you don't want to have like all the podcasts rolled out at once, because
I have been staggering it, and I realize
all at once.
I kind of would just rather shove everything out there.
Really?
Just because like staggering it makes sense, but we're already staggering with new content. So new content is already coming out every week or two. So I almost feel like if I don't know. I feel like if I got myself caught up on that, then I would shift my focus, make the website look nice. So like if somebody shows up, they can see everything. And then if all the content is out there, the right feeds, and the website looks nice, then maybe, go into different ways of promoting it. But right now there's just all this different stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like doing repeat work, like downloading stuff, editing it a little, and then posting it. It's like time consuming. I started hiring someone on Fiverr to do some of it. And, and that's all right, but it takes time. I got all these damn different projects. I have like way too many different things I'm involved in.
So is there anything
along at it?
So is there anything like, so I mean, because I know that you did like a comedy show for like, I don't know, I honestly, like, do you want to like say, not necessarily like what's working, like what do you turn the quote interview like around, like, so what do you like to do, or what do you do? Like, not obviously I know, but like for the benefit of everyone else. So what do you like to do? Like, people ask me, what do you do for a job? But if you say, what do you do? They normally talk about for a job. But what do you like to do? Like, what is your passion?
These are deep things. All right. So what are the stuff that I like? So I do like doing stand-up. That's something I really enjoy doing. Something I've spent a lot of time working on lately is making a video series / documentary about, I haven't decided if it's going to be a bunch of videos and a series, or if it's going to be one long video and a documentary type thing about the psychiatric survivor movement and about forced psychiatric treatment. So I spent a bit of time in that like mental health activism world and trying to find ways to kind of help those people or stop people from being like forced into involuntary treatment. Treatment, I should put like air quotes around. Then kind of I spent some time like trying to figure out how to work on the forced schooling situation, how to like help kids that are not happy in school and are being forced into that environment and they don't want to be there. And that's where like the Peer Unschooling Network came from, and that's sort of what got me interested in doing.
Do I explain what the Peer Unschooling Network is real quick?
Yeah, so the Peer Unschooling Network right now is a digital community for people that are unschoolers, self-directed learners, Sudbury students, people that are like Agile Learning Centers, people that do self-directed learning. One of the issues that I ran into there, like what is my ultimate goal, is to help the kids that are stuck in school who have no choice, no voice, no options, and then when they're unhappy or they're not doing well, they're told that it's their fault. Like there's something wrong with them, that they're bad kids, that they got a bad attitude, that they are flawed. You could get even worse and say that they're told they have a disorder because they're not doing well in school or they're not happy. Like there's something wrong with them, when really I would argue that it's the environment, it's the system that is wrong, and that there's nothing wrong with these kids themselves. And so if I want to help those kids, it's like, well, what can you do? And in the beginning, I started working on a platform called Open Source High where kids would teach each other. So they'd make videos teaching each other. And my idea was, if I have a way that kids can teach each other, then they won't need school and they can kind of collaborate and lean on one another for support. Because another thing that happens is like parents play a huge role in education of the kids, whether the parent is, and I don't necessarily mean that the parent is the teacher, but there's a lot of studies that show that outcomes in schools and outside of school for education basically has to do with how involved your parents are in your life. A lot of kids do not have that. So I was like, well, in the absence of parents, what do you do with all those kids that like, you're just going to, sorry, you got dealt a shitty hand. Your parents are either split up or they're unavailable or they're working too much, whatever. Sorry, like you're shit out of luck. Well, why can't these kids lean on each other through peer support and come together as a team? Whereas school is all about pitting you against each other in a competition. Like what if people actually collaborate and help one another? So Open Source High, that was the goal. And what ended up happening was not what I wanted. It turned into sort of a school thing where I'd run contests where kids would make videos teaching each other and they would submit them. And I didn't want to be the judge because I felt like that, I don't want to be the judge. What it evolved into was kids, they wanted me to be the judge. So we'd run a contest giving away prizes. They would create videos. I would judge the winner, give a prize out, and it turned into school where it was like I was giving an assignment and rewarding with prizes. And it was not really a community that was about kids teaching each other. It got messed up. And so I said, all right, well, what am I trying to achieve here? Like, what is the real goal of this? It's supposed to be to like empower young people to not be trapped and a victim in this system. So then I started looking at the unschooling world and the homeschooling world because I had started to learn about that. Some people saw my website and they reached out, and I went to a conference. I ended up going to LWI and meeting you guys. And I was like, here, I thought I needed to invent the way for people to get out of school. I don't need to invent it. It already exists. People have been doing this shit for years. Like, I don't need to invent something. So I was like, well, what can I do to make what you all do affordable and accessible to anybody so that anyone can get to have the self-directed education experience that people like you have? And I thought, okay, well, what if one of the things I noticed at the conference was people were talking about they wish there was a way to connect with one another more. They wish there was more unschoolers. They wish they had more ways to meet friends and make friends. So I was like, okay, well, what if we had a digital community for kids that are unschoolers, that don't go to school? And if that existed, it would help them with this social situation. And also for those kids that are in school, if I was to go and tell kids that are in school, hey, like you don't have to go. There's all these people that are thriving outside the school system. And they'd look at me and be like, fuck you. Yeah, right. You're full of shit. Then I could say, well, if you don't believe me, like there's a whole community of them online. Like go check this website out. Like you can, instead of talking to me and asking me, like go talk to the people that are actually doing it.
Right.
And so that was the goal. And it still wasn't direct because what ended up happening is that I had to create a thriving community of unschoolers online in order to have the tool that helps the kids that are in school. Well, what if it turns out that unschoolers don't really, really, really want or need a community that connects one another? Then I've done all this work and put all this energy into this thing that isn't actually helping the kids that are in school. And so I feel like that sort of happened and with Pun, that, there's a part of me that thinks, well, if it was a mobile app, maybe more people would use it. But I think ultimately the deal
is... You made a mobile app, right?
Yeah, I did. And it was like, okay, it was kind of buggy. And I think I might have pulled it out of the iTunes. It got rejected from the iTunes store.
Really?
And it's on Android. And so they have... Basically, the way the app worked was it took the chat part of the website and shoved it into an app. It was not like a native app that was coded to really be an app. It was kind of... So
wait, just to be clear, the app, it's actually like pure unschooling, it's not like...
If you were to go in the Android store and search pure unschooling network, you'd find an app. At least I think it'd be there. I haven't looked at it.
Unschooling network?
Yeah, I believe it'd be there unless it's...
I was just using the Rocket Chat version of it, right?
So that's what so the Rocket Chat thing, so it's there, yeah. So the Rocket Chat is the code base that I used, and there's like...
I like this 5 stars, one review. Jim Flannery, well, finally, I've been waiting for this for so long.
Yes, I had been waiting so long. And so when I came out with that, I got a little bit frustrated and I didn't keep doing the app development, and I felt like in a lot of ways like I was looking at this problem all wrong. And I said, first off, I'm impatient, so that could be a piece. I'm very impatient, and I was like, well, all this stuff that I'm doing to help the kids that are outside of school already, is this actually me still being indirect? Like when I started doing Open Source High, right? I was like, all right, my goal is to help the kids that are locked up in school. Let me do this, and then it like turned into school. So then I was like, well, let me connect the kids that are outside of school, and that will ultimately help the kids in school. And I'm like, all right, well, I feel like if you're an unschooler, do you really want to just meet up with other unschoolers? Like maybe during the school year when everyone's busy and in school, but ultimately, like, it doesn't seem like they really, really, really have that much of an interest in just meeting other people like them. And so, I've been doing work in this world for, I don't know, like maybe like 4 years now, and I feel like I've created these different things. I've learned a lot, but I'm still not being direct enough at helping the kids that are in school. And so that was like last winter, I started running these workshops called School Sucks, So Start Your Own. And those were designed, I'd go to public libraries and do these workshops for kids that are in school. And then I decided to shift gears, and I was like, okay, maybe, like I felt like at these events, like I was trying to get all the information out in one event. And I was like, that's like too much. Attendance was low. Not a lot of people were coming. And I was like, well, fuck it. Why don't I do it as a comedy show? Why do I feel like I need to tell them everything in one thing?
Just
why don't I do it?
Like, see a little bit of the world.
Say again?
See a little bit of that world.
Yeah, like why don't I do a comedy show? That brings more people would come because it's fun. But one of the issues with doing the School Sucks workshops is like if you're unhappy in school, do you really want to go to your public library in your town and walk into a workshop called School Sucks where you have to be self-identifying as unhappy? Like there's a lot of reasons why kids wouldn't come to that type of a thing. So then I was like, all right, let me do it as a comedy show and give a taste of stuff.
Did you try that? Oh, by the way, I've been texting Dylan. He's going to be on.
Okay, cool.
So did you actually ever try that, like the School Sucks thing?
Yeah. I did not a ton of them. I think I did maybe 7, or I probably did like 8 in the fall. And what I found, by the way, what I found was that I also have done workshops at Splash and Spark. So these are events that are at like MIT, where basically all these students from around the world, mostly the Northeast United States, come for a weekend. And people like me volunteer to teach a workshop about anything that we want. We get to choose any topic we want. And then kids...
The unconference you're talking about?
No. It's not an unconference. It's just a weekend of like educational enrichment, whatever. And you could teach anything that you wanted. So I used to do video production workshops. I've done public speaking workshops. There's everything from like quantum mechanics to dance to art. Like anything can be taught that you want to teach. I mean, you guys could even do it if you want to. And if you had a topic you wanted to teach about, if you wanted to go to one of these and teach about trust, you could do that. And so I did my School Sucks workshops, and the rooms were packed. So I remember there was nowhere to sit, like 100 seats, 100 filled, and people. But the thing is, everyone was already there for a weekend of activities and learning and classes, and they were choosing what's interesting. So there were different barriers. It was a lot easier to fill a room there. And if I could, I would just do that every weekend, but those events don't necessarily exist every weekend. I wanted to be able to run my things anywhere. I wanted to be able to promote it myself, my own event. And also I keep getting, every time I've done these things at MIT, I get these letters from them saying that I'm using bad language, or that I've got, it's funny, they don't, I get some issues. I just got kicked out, or not get kicked out, but from the library in Northampton, Lilly Library.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny. I did my comedy show there. It was the best one that I did all year. It was 2 weeks ago. And I just got an email saying that I'm no longer welcome back there.
Well, did they get complaints or something?
Yes. Actually, during the show, they came in and they were actually really nice about it. They didn't tell me I had to stop the show. They asked me to turn, initially, like 3 minutes into it, they asked me to turn the volume down. And I said, okay. And then about a half hour into it, they came and said, and I thought we were going to get kicked out. And they said, can you turn the sound off and not use the microphone? And I was like, okay. I felt like that was fair of them. I didn't get up on my horse and say, well, hey, the American Library Association says that you cannot filter the content. I didn't get into that. I didn't cite constitutional law and shit like that. I was just like, you know what? That's fair. Even if I was in here talking about anything, you wouldn't want that to be blasting through into the other rooms of the library. It's totally fair. But then they did send me an email saying sorry, we're not, you can't do this no more. And what are you going to do? So where I kind of got off on a tangent, you were asking me what I'm doing kind of with my time, what I'm doing now. And so I was spending a lot of time all summer trying to find new ways of promoting shows and then performing these shows for young people, where I talk a lot about mental health system and I talk a lot about the school system in these shows. And so that started, by the end of the summer, I was getting good audiences and the shows went really well. Like I just mentioned, the one in Northampton. And now for the fall, I'd like to keep that going a little bit, but I have a deadline. I really need to put a lot of time into doing this video series. I got contracted to create these videos about psychiatric survivors. So those are things that I really care about and would love to do more of. I'd like to, honestly, the more I think about pun, I think that I'm being kind of indirect with it. Maybe I'm scared in some way, or maybe I'm worried it won't work. I think that I'd like to do more actual activism and alternative education. If I try to figure out what role do I play, where do I fit in, it'd be nice to actually do real legit activism. So I am looking into things with you've heard some of my ideas about the standardized test system. And so I actually have looked in and talked to lawyers about what my liability is of bringing those ideas I have about testing to young people, and what kind of legal trouble I could get into, and where that. And it turns out that my lawyer says that I wouldn't be doing anything criminal, so I couldn't go to jail for any of this, but I could open myself to being sued by these testing companies. And I was like, okay, well, what if I have no assets? What if they don't have anything to take? It kind of comes into this game. Well, they could make an example out of there's all these different things, but I look at maybe that's my role in this thing of okay, there's the performer, the entertainer, the comedian side of it. Am I going to go do academic research and publish articles showing that self-directed, is that I don't know if I want to do that. Maybe the activism thing. And even the trouble with doing activism in this realm is everything that I read says that activism is most effective when it's done by the group that went through, that's dealing with the oppression. So in the psychiatric world, the fact that I went through the psych system, that makes me a person that can play a role in that and be effective in it. In the school system, it's a little bit questionable because, I'm 32, so I'm not in school no more. Ideally, it would be young people that are speaking up and fighting back. But on the other hand, when I talk to unschoolers who are out of the school system, many of them never went to it, and many of them don't really have that much of an interest in fighting the school system. They're like, hey, I'm out. I'm good. I'm all set. or you have people that really care, but they're no longer under 18. And so like I did go to school. Like if anyone has the right to criticize it, maybe I do. And I think that I've dealt, you mentioned people criticizing character. Like I've dealt with people in the psychiatric world who have criticized me for being a white male, and that like, oh, my voice, it's a little bit of like an identity thing of like, oh, like, do we need another white man who's speaking out about these things? Because historically, the few people that have spoken up about it, a lot of them have been white men, or at least a lot of the leaders. Though ironically, Judy Chamberlain is probably one of the most historically prominent voices in the movement. She was a woman. And then in the alternative education world, not like everybody, but I have taken some like really like painful criticism, and I don't even know if you can call it criticism, but people said some like really like harsh shit about me because of the fact that I'm like a grown man with no single adult man with no children involved in alternative.
Yeah, I think that for some reason, well, I guess the reason is obvious, but people tend to not like. People really. Oh, by the way, I was on my phone and I did go on the app, and it seems to work pretty well. So everyone download that app and review it 5 stars.
Yeah, check out and give it 5 stars. Yeah,
five stars. I'll do that right now, actually. I think that. What exactly did you say? What I was going to respond to? I completely forgot the exact.
Something about this idea, like trying to figure out like what's my role. Like I'll give you an example. So there's 2 different things that I think of. One is my role to like inspire young activists to like fight against the school system and compulsory education and to change the system, where like I'm not doing it, but I'm more inspiring young people in some way? Or should I do shit? Like, I mean, my idea about the standardized test system is pretty fucking dope. And like, that's being pretty like direct and active. But is it a good thing if I am the one doing it, even though I'm no longer a student? It's like this juggling thing. And I know
what I was going to talk about. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
It was the whole like the male coming to the conference, single male.
Yeah, sure.
I think that. I mean, it's like. I feel like it's kind of weird considering it. I feel like it is really weird that that's so. At a conference where everyone's supposed to be, or not everyone, but people are supposed to try to be open-minded. I feel like that's really, Dylan's here. I feel like that's really kind of weird, right? It's like, like 30-year-old male's here. He must be here to like touch children. He can't actually have an interesting opinion to say on the topic, right?
I'll tell you, if I was going to diddle children, I'd get a van or I'd hang out like, I don't know. I don't know what I would do, but I wouldn't go to a conference and be like, I was the host of the open mic. Like I'm on stage and I was like,
hey, I don't know, kids.
Yeah, like I would be sneaky about it. I think I don't think I would broadcast myself, though. Historically, I don't know how the diddler like population has worked, but
seems like a great excuse for a pedophile.
Yeah, right.
Hey, why would I do it this way? It's just so dumb to do this way. I would do it another way if I really wanted to diddle kids.
Yeah, I would find kids that had no parents that were like at orphanages. I would do that kind of thing. I'd go be a foster parent.
You could be like, oh, you're really cool because I'm attracted to you and I'm older and I'm experienced, kind of thing. That's like how older men get, like younger teens. It's like, wow, you're really old for your age.
I'll tell you, I felt a little uncomfortable. My last comedy show, there was a little discomfort. There was like some teenage girls there, or specifically one that like made a sign and not that, I mean, I'm not claiming she was interested in me, but all of a sudden, like I was like, oh, like I wonder if I should feel a little uncomfortable here that this is, I don't know, like how do I don't know. I felt a little because I don't like barriers. I don't like the idea of putting up barriers. I don't like the idea of treating different people differently. I mean, part of my whole like thesis is like everyone's a human being. Everyone should like be respected and have equal rights. I don't like the idea of like keeping distance from somebody because I'm afraid of how, I don't know. I just want people to be people, and on the flip side, like I am the guy fucking on the stage, like talking to everybody, and like I am kind of making myself different than all the other people in the room. Like everyone's looking at me, and my name's on the poster and stuff. But I don't like the idea of there being like barriers or something that I've got to like distance myself from people or be like, oh, okay, like how old are you? like I understand the law says you can't have sex with people under 18, right? But like, what about just like talking to them after a show or like, hey, like, thanks for coming to my show. Like, oh, you know, like maybe I'm like hugging the other, like people are hugging me. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just shake your hand because I don't know how that'll be perceived. Or like people are doing photographs. They put their arm around me and we're doing a photo. I'm like, oh, okay, is this appropriate? Like, oh shit, like it's just really paralyzing in some way.
Let me just rape kids, okay?
Yeah, can't I just move to a country where it's legal? No.
Like cut out the bullshit. Just get right to the point.
Yeah. God,
Like,
so,
imagine like the intricacies you have to go through. I'm gonna go to this conference. I'm gonna pay. I'm gonna have a room. I'm gonna have all this crap. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna talk to the kids about having a peer on schooling network. I'm gonna do all this thing. I'm gonna design a website. I'm gonna do this. And then after around 40 years, I'll do a little kid.
yeah, right? Like, oh my God, I'll tell you this. If I was a pedophile, God damn it, I'd be really frustrated with how long it's taken to achieve a level of success that kids are lining up in my door. Like, I'm really going about it the long way.
Maybe you're gonna like in a few years, you're gonna, like I'm gonna open a Sudbury school, and then.
Yeah. By the way, I gotta know. Biggie wants to try to wrap us up in like 15 minutes. Not to diss you, Dylan. That you just I know you like showed up. Perfect timing also for the pedophile conversation.
Yeah.
Dylan just came on like, and if you just really wanted to rape kids, Jim, wouldn't you just do it? It's like,
There's gotta be easier ways.
Yeah. What else have you guys been talking about?
Just exclusively this topic.
Really?
I don't know. We talked a little bit about the show and what motivated me to get involved in the show, what motivated Neil, what our interests are, like a little bit of like where we want the show to go. And Neil was asking me about the stuff that I'm interested in, and I was mentioning like being involved in making a video series about mental health activism, and then I mentioned pun and kind of trying to figure out what's next for. I was saying I don't think I'm being direct enough with the work I do in education. Like it's still like beating around the bush, I think. And so I'm trying to figure out like the next steps.
Do you think you're going to go to the next AIR conference, Jim?
I'll have to see where it's located and it'll be next spring. Usually there's AeroX and then Aero. So I'll see when and where it's going to be. And if it makes sense for me to be there, I'll go. It's a good conference.
That's very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I just got back from where my job's going to be. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be, I'm just starting.
Exactly.
What's the job? What are you doing?
Well, it's at a restaurant, so I think I'm going to be like host, like being a host and then being a line cook. So just starting.
So what are you going to do with the line cooking? So what does that do? Being a line cook, what does that entail?
Well, it's like making fries and working on like a flat top, like the griddle. So that kind of stuff. It's like on the line.
Mm. Is that what Owen's doing? Owen also goes to film at Sudbury School. Okay.
Yes. Owen also got the job. Which is pretty. It's nice to have a friend there, and not just to go into it knowing no one. Oh, I don't know. Nothing else. I don't have anything else planned really. Oh, I think I'm really excited for this week. It's a really big Magic event. Happens 4 times a year. Magic's that card game I really like. It's like a really big thing. It's like a new expansion's coming out, and people stay up like all night and play Magic with the new set. It's very fun, and it's a lot of older people because all the younger people can't like stay all night because it's like going to a midnight movie show. Instead of watching a movie, you play Magic for 5 hours. But I stay for 12 hours. So I play Magic
because you were winning. Because you were like, is it one of those things?
No, it's like there's two events. There's one that starts at like 6 in the afternoon. So I stay from like 5. Like I'll stay from 5 on Friday to 5 in the morning on Saturday. I'll just stay that whole time. But it's fun because all the old people are like, they're good, but like they get really tired at like 3 a.m. And I'm not tired at all, which is great because they just start to suck. Do you think you're going to do that?
The pre-release?
Yeah. It really is. It's the most fun thing you can do playing Magic. It is the most fun way to play Magic.
I might. I don't know because so coming up now, that I'm doing this like I'll say for the benefit of the audience, I was doing this like college class on American politics, and like there's like multiple things I have to do this week, and then I don't know what I don't think I'm doing anything else on the weekend.
But also, if you wanted to, Neil, you don't have to show up at 6 o'clock like you normally have to. You can show up like whenever.
Oh, okay.
Just before, I mean, obviously before midnight.
Right.
You know,
But
I
you
thought
can
of you, Dylan. By the way,
Yeah.
I was in Cambridge, and I went and they had a game shop, and then they had this downstairs area where they had like all these like people were playing Magic, or people playing D&D. There was like this thing going on where I don't know if it was D&D or something with like these vertical structures. I always thought D&D was like flat, but it was like I was like, wow, and dude, it smells so bad down there. It smelled really bad.
Dude, it smells so nasty. The whole place smells so nasty. And it's really hot, too. Like, super sweaty. It's just a bunch of fat dudes sitting in a room playing cards. Like a tiny room. 50 people crammed into, like, a tiny room. And that's not very fun. But there's actually, it's really cool. There's this one lady. So this event is, like, a lot of casual players come that you don't normally see. So, like, there's this one lady that comes every year. She dresses up like a witch. And like she has like a ball and chain kind of thing. She's really cool. But it is so much fun. But actually on Saturday I went, and God, this guy he had his deck, and it was like easily $50,000.
What the
It
fuck?
was ridiculous. I could not believe how expensive it was.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was really good. It's just like all the most expensive editions of everything.
Dude, we should get this guy Richard Garfield to be on the show.
That would be cool. He's actually a mathematician before like creating magic.
Yeah?
That's his main thing. He's a mathematician, and I think partially the reason he made magic is something to do in between long terms of D&D.
Yeah, isn't that like one of the main reasons?
That's one of the bigger reasons, but he's actually from around. He lives in Philly. Well, I don't know if he lives in Philly.
Really?
But that's where.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. It says here, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, yeah?
I don't know if he still lives here. Maybe Seattle, because I think that's where they make the game.
You want to contact him, or you want me to contact him?
I think better you contact him, because I don't think he, like a little kid, you want to be on our podcast?
He doesn't know you're a little kid. Maybe that's why I don't know the statistics, but it may
Would
be
you like
more.
to be on my podcast, sir? I really like playing Magic. I play every Friday night. I go and I like to play with my friends, and we like to sit down and we like to do the cards.
I mean, crazier things have happened. My dad got the guy who's considered the best ever to come to our house and have dinner with us.
Really?
He's the Michael Jordan of it. He's amazing. It's like he's won, or no, so like your career in Magic is like how many Pro Tour top 8s you've had, not how many you've won. Winning is good, but it doesn't really matter. If you've won, win, it won't. But if so, like a Hall of Fame career, which is hard to get, is like 3 or 4 top 8s. He has 16.
Wow. Jesus. Well, so actually, one thing that you were asking what we were talking about earlier on the show. One thing that I brought up I think the best episodes for an audience to watch of our show are the ones where you have a specific topic or a specific guest. And the reason for that is that if I was to go on a website or I was to go on the podcast app and I'd be scrolling through, if all that we have as a title is the date, I'm just not like as inclined to click that as I am if it says a subject I'm interested in. What I think the ones where are the discussion is very open, those are really good because it figures out what we're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, we just had an open thing for 2 hours and we spend an hour talking about this. Why don't we do a specific episode, or why don't we find a guest to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Have we ever? Okay, not to be
Why
like
not Magic is why
not to be kind of like a not to be kind of like I guess I don't know what the word is, but have we ever actually like done that? Like have we ever actually like talked about something on a show and then been like, okay, this is cool, let's do this as a topic for the next show? Like have we actually ever actually done that? I mean, I feel
well, I'm
not
suggesting that we do it. Like, for example, okay, when Nicole was on, the last hour was really all about Magic. So I'm surprised. I don't know. I'm just coming up with this on the spot here. So I'm like, hey, we could have been like, hey, I wonder what guests we could have on to talk about Magic. And so I just Googled a minute ago, like, who invented Magic, and I come with this Richard Garfield guy, and maybe there's other ones, but to try to figure out who.
I think it's better to have a subject. I like those episodes a lot more.
Mm.
That'd be really good. I'm really happy too though about this new job is that the hours are great because it closes at 2 in the afternoon. So really I don't know.
That's cool.
I don't have to miss it.
So are you doing that instead of going to South Jersey?
I think a couple days a week.
Okay.
Probably.
Cool.
Because I can't work full time as a minor at least.
Okay. Let me ask you two guys, speaking of guests, so you had mentioned, I think your aunt is a nurse or is in healthcare.
Yeah, my cousin is.
Your cousin. Okay, so I had also talked to someone who works in hospitals and nursing homes who likes that we do this show, who is interested in being on. And I thought of another person who is sort of a similar mindset. Would you find it to be a more fun thing to bring on one guest in that space and ask them questions, or do you think it would be more fun if we had like 2 or 3 people who all, say, worked in healthcare and could provide? What do you think would be a better? I
kind of think it'd be better to do one at a time.
I don't know.
Well,
okay.
I don't have a strong opinion on this.
Look, I was thinking that at first too, but then I kind of thought, and I thought about this for a second. I'm thinking, well, like imagine kind of like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but imagine like we have a show where we have like a bunch of people on talking about something. It'd be kind of like, I feel like it'd be, I don't know what I want to use. It's like a true podcast. I don't know. Like we have a bunch of people who know about the subject, and we have all of us talking about the subject. Like, yeah, it's we can get more to the point with one person, but I feel like having a broad, I feel like it's more in essence to what other podcasts offer, and I feel like that's, I don't know, allows us to approach it with a different viewpoint. And it would be the first time we'd be doing it too, like interviewing like a group, or not even interviewing, just having a conversation, like a group of people, like in that context at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be willing to try something different. I think it'd be very interesting.
I think it could be. Yeah, it'd be really fast. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I like, that's what I was going to say. See, Jim, I don't know if you watched our last podcast. Did you watch it?
I think I watched the first half of it. I don't think I saw the second.
Neil, I tried to get Neil to think that 9/11 was conspiracy.
How'd that work?
I got him now. I showed him the stuff.
No, absolutely not.
When you say it's a conspiracy that it didn't happen?
No.
No.
First of all, I don't think 9/11 was a conspiracy. I don't think 9/11 was an inside job. Let me just be clear. That's Dylan's fucking stupid dude.
That's what he was saying 2 days ago.
That's no. I said that it's very possible, and I might bet money that there were other explosives involved in 9/11. I said nothing else.
Well, I haven't seen enough of it to come to my own conclusion.
And
I haven't researched the subject enough to draw my own conclusions. That
I like how I see this. Dylan, I both see this documentary. I come out saying, maybe I would change my mind a little bit on the fact that there could be some other explosives that happened in 9/11. That seems like confusing, but I was like, Dylan's like, 9/11 was an inside job. 9/11 was an inside job. Bush did 9/11. Bush did 9/11.
I never said Bush did 9/11.
Who else would have done it was an inside job? You saw they drew lines on the thing in the documentary.
I said I would bet money. I said I wasn't definite on it.
Well, here's the thing: is like I guess it's like to say that it's a inside job. It's tricky because then, like, to say it's an inside job suggests that like there's this whole thing going on in our government. Like, what if there was just one member of our government that played a role in it? Could we still then call it an inside job because it was one guy who was an insider giving info? Or does an inside job means that like an entire brand, like our whole CIA knew and did, like it's such a slippery slope to believe that there's more information about it than we've been presented with. Like that seems reasonable.
See, my thing about that, I don't claim to know what happened. I'm just going to bet, I would bet a lot of money that what the government told us, maybe they don't even know the truth, but I don't think that's what actually happened.
What happens is later on after the individuals that are guilty are like out of office, then the secrets get revealed and people don't revolt as much. Like if like 25 years from now it came
It's
out.
like,
with
I
lies,
knew it. I knew it.
yeah,
Oh,
people wouldn't be pissed off because the people you could be pissed off at, they're all retired and they're no longer around.
that's like JFK, I think, in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people think JFK's assassination was faked. Like,
I don't even know if he's really dead.
maybe he's not. But I know for sure back in the 60s, people were pretty freaking pissed. And no one would say, like, oh, it was a conspiracy.
By the way, the perfect timing. We got to wrap up in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, what a wonderful note to end on. Jesus. Okay.
What would you guys say?
Every podcast that we end on, it's always end on 9/11.
What would you do if I told you that I was JFK?
I'd believe you.
I wanna
Prove to me I'm not.
Look, I would do what I think. Look, I want to make history, right? So I'll just kill you.
You just kill me? You wouldn't even like fact check or like my birth certificate or ask my parents or anything, just like straight to murder.
Jim, I've thought about this a really long time, and I believe you.
I thought about this a really long time.
Put a lot of thought into this one.
My brother does look a bit like JFK.
He does.
I don't
Oh
think
my
he
God.
do.
I saw this great. I won't go any farther.
Probably because his brother is JFK.
I won't go really deep into this, but I was watching this very funny video, and it was this guy. He's a Joel Osteen impersonator.
Okay.
Joel Osteen, and he looks just like him, and he snuck his way to the front stage.
Really?
He just looked so much like him. He was like, but he never claimed to say. He was like, "Is this Joel's entrance?" He would like walk through, and he
did he get on stage and like say some really stupid like did he like say religion is bullshit like something like that?
No, he didn't say it, but he never claimed. He just kept talking like he was talking about himself in third person, like he was Joel Osteen.
Joel Osteen was really great.
He's like, "Do you love Joel?" But he's pretending like he never claimed to be Joel. But then he made it the front stage with like no tickets or anything.
Should just have been like, but why does he enough? Religion's a lie, religion's a lie, religion's a lie. Just totally throw everything into disarray for just like 5 minutes.
Have you guys done an episode of this show about religion?
Have we? That'd be fun.
Are Martin and Nathaniel religious? They are, aren't they?
Nathaniel is. I don't know about Martin.
I'm not sure. I think if you're going to do a show about religion, it'd be good to have people that are religious on. Otherwise, it's just a circle jerk of you guys bashing religion.
Yeah, it's basically, it's just going to be us bashing religion constantly because, I mean, let's be honest here. Dylan and I think it's absolute utter bullshit, like to the core. So
You think that every single religion is a lie? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, have you read it all? Have you read all these books? Have you researched?
I never said that.
Like
I
an
never
easy.
said that.
No one ever.
Yeah, it's all bullshit.
First of all, that's a nonsense argument because it's like, well, you can't claim that there's a magical unicorn behind me and no one's looking. Have you read all the books I've read on magical unicorns being behind me? It's like, that's bullshit. Okay.
I don't agree with Neil.
The burden of proof is on you to present to me. Like this, you're like, well, have you actually read everything? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Does my I mean, I'm not a particular religious person, but I don't know that everything is lies. I don't know. I'm still like exploring this concept.
Most of it is lies. I would say that. Most of it.
If there's a God, his existence is not dependent on your belief in him, right?
Well, yeah, but with some religion, my belief is dependent on if I burn for all of eternity in hell, or if or if I basically am in ecstasy for all of eternity, which is the most morally fucking stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. It's so fucking dumb. God loves you so much. He's the greatest. He loves you. He wants you to be happy. If you don't believe me, you're going to burn hell for all of eternity, and you're going to suffer for all of eternity until the end of time. Try to comprehend that. And he loves you, and he just really likes you. He's
Nice
a great
George
guy.
Carlin quote, Neil.
It is. It's George
Neil,
Carlin.
it's your choice. You can choose.
Yeah, you can choose to believe there's a pink unicorn behind me whenever no one's looking. And if you don't, I'm going to stab your sister. I mean, like, what the fuck? It's so dumb. And if you don't believe that, I'm going to stab you. It's that simple.
On that glorious note, should we do closing?
Yeah, probably.
All right.
All right. I'd like to say that Neil thinks my closing statement is that there's unicorn behind me that he can't see.
And if you don't read all the books I wrote on that unicorn,
No, but
then you're wrong.
I think this is very fun, even though I was only on for a little bit. Calling Jim a pedophile is always enjoyable.
Oh, it's an honor. As long as I'm your favorite pedophile. Yeah, this was very impromptu. I did not expect to be on here, but this was a great break from the work I was doing, and so I had fun.
All right, Neil, what's your closing statement?
All right. Well, I don't know. This is a very interesting episode because it started off trying to be like this thing where we would kind of like look at the youth and subjects of the world in like retrospective, and it kind of like completely fell off of that into something I think a lot more fun for us at least. Yeah, I think it was very interesting, and I don't really have a closing statement. I think that this kind of episode doesn't really need one. I think it speaks for itself.
All right.
Not to sound pretentious. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
All right, cool. Hey, thanks for inviting me.
Bye. Thanks, Jim.
Peace.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lainey Liberty.
And this is Mira Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.